Thank you. Okay, the first item is to confirm our future meeting dates. And they're not written here. I believe we're meeting on the 17th and the 24th. Tuesday nights, that still work for everyone?
Yep.
Okay, approval of current payroll and vendor warrants.
Move approval of current payroll and vendor warrants.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're on to citizen speak, and we're going to start tonight with Karen Viveros, who is the event chairperson for the Milton Foundation for Education's annual gala. Karen, welcome, and thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Karen Viveros, as Katie said. I'm here to tell you about the Milton Foundation for Education Celebration 2015. I'm co-chairing the event with Mary Ann Rull. The event is our largest fundraiser of the year and will be held on March 14th at the Boston Marriott Quincy. This year, the funds will go towards STEAM in education, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. There will be raffles, a silent auction, live auction, including a stay in a Disney World villa, Patriots tickets, and many more surprises. Our big fun raffle this year will be for a week-long stay in a cottage by the ocean in Doolin, Ireland, which was donated by the Quealy family. You must be there that night to participate in this raffle. Invitations will be mailed any day. We had some snow delays. And we encourage people to buy their tickets right away. We expect to sell out. Tickets are $85 per person. It is a completely seated event this year with a seated dinner, so no buffet. Tony V., who is a Boston comedian, will be our MC and auctioneer, so he should be a lot of fun. He'll make sure the crowd has a good time. We're still looking for donations of auction items, financial donations of sponsorships. If anybody is interested, they can check the Milton Foundation for Education's website and get information there on how to donate or how to contact us. We look forward to having many Milton families attend the event on March 14th to support the Milton Public Schools as we move full steam ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. That's always a great event.
Yeah.
Karen, what is the website address?
It's Milton Foundation for Education. I don't know if it's .org. I think so, yeah. You can just Google it. It'll come. I think it's the first thing that usually comes up. But and we have an email address too, MFE Celebration 2015 @gmail.com. So if people want to email us, but all that information is right on the website, so it's easy to find.
And people can sign up online, right?
Yeah, actually the tickets will be only sold online this year.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it'll be all the information's in the invitations, but we figured it would be easier for people. And where last year they sold out pretty quickly, figured it was kind of unfair to have some people be able to buy online, and then some people will be waiting for the mail to come in. So we figured go online, and we'll do it that way.
Well, this is one of the best nights of the year, I believe.
It is.
For Milton. My wife and I used to donate this trip to Ireland for 7 years in a row. So I'm glad the Quealy family have stepped in.
Yeah.
Now that my girls are almost out of school. And it raises, I believe, about 150,000?
Yeah, depending on the year, but
150,000 one night.
That certainly does a lot to
it's a huge
for the
event.
schools.
Yeah, it really is, and everybody participates, which is great, and the teachers get really excited for it, which is really fun to see.
And there's about 700 people, so it is important that if you want to go, that you get your tickets early.
So I think it's interesting. STEM morphed into STEAM, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we threw the arts in there to
Arts,
keep
right,
everybody
yeah.
happy. Yes, the music
Great
department
idea.
and the art department at the high school are very happy.
I'm sure they are, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great fundraiser for the schools, as you said, Dennis, and a lot of great volunteers who put it together, so.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Great.
to
Thank you.
Karen
Hope
and
to see you
Mary
all
Ann and
there.
your team,
Thank you. Yeah, hope to
good
see
luck
you all
with it.
there.
And
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
we'll all be there, I'm sure.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else tonight for Citizen Speak? Cheryl?
Hi, everybody. It's been a while
Hi,
since
Cheryl.
I've given any kind of update on the Grassroots Plain Foundation. And one of the things that we're really trying to do is ramp up our membership. We need a lot of people to jump in and help with what we're trying to do. We want to try and plan a couple of Saturday meetings, one at Fuller Village and one at Winter Valley, because those are the people that can really help us, because they've got all the time on their hands, and they're all very well educated and can help us in terms of writing letters, contacting politicians, and that type of thing. I was trying to reach Capuano's office to get him to a meeting with us, And I was also trying to reach Steve Lynch's office, and then, of course, we got Snowmageddon, and no one's been able to get hold of anybody. And I will also be working with trying to get somebody from Marty Walsh's office involved with us. So we've been doing a lot of things. One of the other things that we did was we worked on a write-up for Attorney Barbara Lichman in California. And we'd been tweaking it, and I gave her a call last Friday, and she said, just stop tweaking it and send it to me. So I sent it to her, and she emailed me back yesterday, and she told me that the biggest issue is we've got to keep the pressure on the politicians, but really the only way to do anything is either politically or legally. So I'm waiting for some more information from her, and she may give us some kind of an idea of which way to go legally. And in terms of the runways, we were telling her that they did a categorical exclusion on 27, and she said to find out in terms of the environmental review, if they did one, if they did, when they did it, and what the results were. So she's kind of working with us a little bit and giving us a little bit of guidance on what kind of information we really need to get and where we need to focus in order to really get something done. But I'm sure, as everybody's noticed, the plans are getting worse, not better. So again, it goes back to the FAA being so arrogant and not wanting to meet with anybody, because I believe I did mention the last time I gave an update that Steve Lynch and Walter Timilty met with the FAA, and they were going to come into the town, and then they decided not to. They're hiding behind Massport and the CAC. And the other interesting thing that happened is Myron, I can't think of his last name, he's the Belmont CAC rep. He's actually been successful in having the CAC agree to revisit something in terms of Belmont. And that really makes us on the committee wonder what's going on with our CAC reps, why they're not pushing hard for Milton. Where's Chris Zambuto? Where is David Godine? What's Caroline Kinsella doing? I mean, they're just not doing enough for the town, because if Myron Casaba can get something done for Belmont, 3 people should be able to get something done for Milton. So I think our town fathers, you 3, need to really see what's going on with that and why our Milton CAC reps aren't getting anything done for us.
Thank you, Cheryl. Is there anyone else tonight for citizen speak? Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. I'm Cindy Christensen. I live at 59 Collimore Street. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 7, and I'm here to let you know that we had our first East Milton Neighborhood Association meeting last night. I think it was very successful. We had over 30 people there. I want to thank the Milton Arts Center for allowing us to meet there, Abbey Park for providing us with some refreshments, and also Jeff Stone, who was instrumental in teaching us a bit about how to get this neighborhood association going. I want to let people know that they can still join. We currently have over about 90 members. About 30 people showed up last night, so we have a really really good crowd, but we invite more. I think a lot of people probably just hadn't heard about it yet, because we mostly used the internet to let people know, and we are encouraging people who don't use the internet to join the group. The number one issue for everyone who spoke up last night was traffic and safety in East Milton Square and the residential areas, which probably doesn't come as a surprise to most of you. But that's all I'll report for tonight, and we'll just keep you informed of what's going on with our new neighborhood association. It was a really nice meeting.
Very good. Good luck to the neighborhood association.
Cindy,
It's always good to have
how
those.
often are you going to meet?
We're going to meet at least quarterly as a group, although we may ramp up a little bit now that we're just starting. So we may do something next month. There was a great interest from the members in having a meeting to go over the articles for the warrant, which I saw was very good. And there's some interest in getting some of the members into leadership roles in the community. So we're working on that also. Yeah, it's a nice group.
Good.
Thanks,
Good luck to the neighborhood association. Anyone else tonight for citizen speak? Okay, then seeing none, we're going to go on with a meeting with our public safety officials. And we're going to be joined by our fire chief, our police chief, and our public works director.
I already emailed it up.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It's been a tough week and a half.
Yeah, really tough.
Here's my breath. Ready for the next one.
You should be.
I think we want to turn it over to all of you to get us started, but first of all, on behalf of the board, thank you to all of your employees and all of your, I know, Joe, you've got some private contractors, I think, involved as well with all the cleanup. So thank you to all of them, to you and to your departments and all of them for all of the work you've done during the storm and the blizzard. And we thought we'd talk tonight a little bit, maybe some updates you can provide, maybe we talk a little bit about what worked really well, what we might need to fix, and just talk in general about where things are at, and any public safety announcements that you want to share with the viewing public would be great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, the town has a real strong local emergency plan agency, and the LEPC meets regularly, but on the same token, we also drill regularly, and typically they're simulation drills. And last week, we treated it as a live drill. We put the EOC in place. We met down in the Blue Conference Room as the storm was bearing down. We had been watching it for days, for that matter. But at that point, we put a plan in place. We had the various constituencies represented, police, fire, ambulance, the hospital, Council on Aging, Board of Health, and the various stakeholders who would have some interest in fighting the storm and preparing for it. And that worked very, very well. And you participated by telephone. So you were also present at the meeting, as well as Anne Marie. But around the table are lots of other stakeholders than the ones I mentioned, but those are the ones who play the greatest role in a storm such as this. Chief says it the best. We'll get through it. We've been through it before. We'll get through it again. Our star shines the brightest under the worst of circumstances. You've heard me say it. The storm's no different. I think it's interesting to point out the blizzard. The first storm, 34.5 inches, second biggest storm ever recorded at Blue Hill in a 24-hour period. A lot of people will say, well, that's nothing compared to the blizzard of 78. Well, yeah, it was. It was a lot bigger than the blizzard of 78. Things are improved a lot. We've got much better forecasting capabilities, much better storm fighting strategies, much better equipment, much better communications. We're prepared for it. We deal with it pretty well. Things that are different in storms like this nowadays, though, is a heck of a lot more people expect to be mobile. And the chief, very early on, imposed, working with us, imposed a parking restriction for an extended period of time. The governor helped in a great way by putting a travel ban in place, and that helps immensely with our snow fighting operations, keeping those cars off the road, getting stuck, and keeping the people parked from the corners and sides of the road for us to clear as wide as we can. We towed a bunch of cars. Not everybody got it, but the police do a great job of running the plate first and try to track the people down and get them to move it before an actual tow is necessary. So, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. What we did well is plan well. We fought it well. You've got a storm that many of my guys worked very scary hours. 38, 40 hours straight with no more than 2-hour cat naps on a cyclical basis to be able to spell them so they're not falling asleep and causing damage or causing harm. So it was a very, very scary, long, prolonged storm. We've got approximately 20 pieces of our own equipment and 39 contractor pieces of equipment, so we were out there full force. We even tapped into the larger equipment that we have only for the major storms. We tapped every single one of those pieces of equipment, and thank God we did. Storm like that, though, light and fluffy, long wind, takes about 3 hours to cycle through a route. So if you're getting 2, 3, 4 inches an hour and the wind is blowing, by the time you get to the beginning of the route, you could conceivably have a foot of new snow in your route. And we saw that in a lot of cases, a lot of calls the next morning. Nothing has happened. Nobody's been on my street. Well, it's certainly not true. People would see it that way because they would see a blown-in street. So the patience of the townspeople was very, very good. They understand the magnitude of the storm, great communication out of the government statewide and the local news outlets. So I think the people's expectations were this was a real storm, and their patience were pretty strong during the height of the storm. The follow-up and the cleanup afterwards, which is necessary, storms such as this, when it blows in, it's light and fluffy. You can't plow it and it stays up like a wet snow will. It plows up, it falls down. So as a result, plows up, falls down, the roadway widths got lost. I sent a notice out this morning based on some observations that both chiefs have made, and Chief Wells in particular pointed out with regards to his banning of overnight parking even for those hardship permits, brought it to light. I apologize in advance. We broadcast using all the media outlets that we have access to. Some are in this room this evening, and the word is getting out. We are out plowing streets today and tomorrow. We'll be widening those streets, making way for what is conceivably another 12 to 18-inch storm this coming weekend, Sunday, Monday. Without it, we will have a severe impact to public safety. It's with great understanding and great appreciation for the effort that people put into clearing their driveways, but I am, in fact, by widening the streets, going to be plowing their driveways in today and tomorrow, all in the interest of getting as many inches of roadway back so fire apparatus and ambulances and police can move through those neighborhoods when they need to without worrying about oncoming traffic or cars parked on the side. Along with that is the concerns for pedestrian safety at intersections, particularly on busy roads, as well as sidewalks. We've worked the sidewalk routes that we do regularly. We've actually expanded out of those regularly prescribed routes, and we're trying to work radially out from those to get, some of those sidewalks plowed out where we're not
What
able
about
to.
the high snowbanks at intersections? Have we knocked any of those down? Or
We have been knocking them down as we go. A
lot of them, I know.
It's just ominous. We're doing it along the main drags first, where secondary roads hit the main drags, and then it's going to take us a long time to get into local neighborhoods. And quite honestly, there may be some neighborhoods that's simply going to melt away before we get there.
Yeah.
And we just, people are patient. They are generally courteous when it comes to driving. They need to extend the utmost of care when it comes to, watching when they make a turning movement at an intersection. Kids are going to be sliding. They enjoy the snow. They could slide, and I saw it myself many a time, sliding off the banks on little sleds just playing, and find themselves out edge of the driveway into the street. So people have got to be very, very careful traveling. You thank the men and women, and I appreciate that. It's great to hear that. I've got to thank the men and women in my department. I get the opportunity of driving around and listening to the phone calls and complaints. They're out there literally facing the public eye to eye in some instances, being flagged down, people stopping in front of them and, yelling at them and threatening them. My guys showed nothing but the highest level of decorum in dealing with the danger, the severity of the storm, the hostility of the people, and the endurance of just their bodies and what they can be capable of doing. And they were tried pretty hard this past storm, these past two storms. So we talked about the first storm, 34.5, but more remarkably is in the past 7 days, 43.9 inches. That's just shy of 4 feet of snow we've had, and all of it light and fluffy. And that's not counting the little bit of snow we've got today as well, which adds another 4 inches. Cost. First of all, the blizzard, there's been a lot of chatter that there's likely to be an emergency declaration for our county. It's done on a county-by-county basis. Our county almost certainly has hit the thresholds. We've exceeded the snow that we got from the blizzard of 13 in snowfall amounts, and all we need to worry about is a dollar threshold, and I think because of the volume and some of the coastal impacts, we're certainly going to hit it. What that means is when we've hit the threshold, the governor will then make a formal request on a county-by-county basis to FEMA. FEMA, in turn, will funnel it up to the White House, who will, in turn, make a federal declaration. If all of that happens, Milton will be eligible for reimbursement of the direct snow plowing costs that occurred within a 48-hour window. What that means to us is 3:30 Monday afternoon to 3:30 Wednesday afternoon will be the covered period. However, we were doing cleanup all week long, and including up to snow removal on Saturday night. So the eligible period is a much narrower window of eligibility with what we really have incurred in the blizzard storm. We haven't even begun to. There's no discussion whatsoever with what storm we just had earlier this week. And it will not hit the threshold, so there's no sense to have the discussion. It was a big storm on top of another big storm, but not eligible for federal declaration whatsoever.
And likely the next one coming probably won't either, right?
Right, so for the blizzard, we had really two separate operations. Fighting the snow, we spent approximately $204,000 in direct costs out of pocket. That's labor, overtime, our contractor costs, and our salt costs. There's some indirect costs, such as if it does get to FEMA, they will reimburse us for some of the eligible equipment costs. Now, we own the equipment, so it really doesn't cost us out of pocket, but they do reimburse for it. And then some damage. So we've estimated there's about $85,000 in additional costs on top of that 204. So you can call it, so that's just the snow fighting itself. The snow hauling operation, which we did last Saturday night, which hauled the snow out of the business districts, East Milton, Milton Hill, and the Central Avenue business districts. That cost us $29,000 in direct costs and another $5,500 in equipment costs there. So this storm, in essence, cost us, $324,000 in total cost. We should expect to see eligibility of something around the $200,000 cost. So we should see reimbursement to the effect of $150,000, so about half out of FEMA, should this all trickle down the way I see it. Not great news, and not good news, but it's better than having to go it on our own.
So if we had a just back of the envelope, 3 storms, Blizzard, net 150, the other 2 storms, another 150 each.
You're an accountant, I can tell. 225 was the second storm.
Okay.
225 on its own.
Okay.
And then the smallest storms, lesser amount. And those are estimates, the second storm, we were still cleaning up for it when we were out there working today.
Right.
It's still in an encore. If you remember, the budget is 150.
Okay. So we're, well, the winter's not over, but so we're potentially $500,000 over budget
Without
without any more snow. That's scary. I know, we can, obviously, snow and ice is one of those exceptions that you can roll into, you can deficit spend and roll into next year, just you got to figure out a way to pay for it the next year.
Sure, and we had a relatively mild winter last year, and so we didn't suffer as badly as we've had in other years. 13 was a real big year, so it does run cyclically, but, in every single year, we will always spend the 150 that's budgeted.
Sure.
Every single year, we spend that filling the salt bond for the first time each year. So as soon as that bond gets filled, that budget is gone.
And a lot of people might want to know, how come so low? And there is a reason for that, that you can go up, but you can't come back down again.
Yeah, part of it's strategy, and part of it's recognition of the strategy, and ultimately it comes down to state law, under state municipal finance. And I cannot quote chapter and verse. Amy certainly could. But what it does is every community must budget at least what they had budgeted in the prior fiscal year. Once you raise it up to the next level, if, say, you decide, what a great year, we could throw another 200,000 into it and call it 350.
Then you're capped.
That's your new starting point forevermore. And it's because, in fact, it's an emergency operation. How much is enough? How much is too much? How many fires might you get in a year? How many riots, or how many people might be out on the expressway chaining themselves together? Who the heck knows? So it allows you to take a shot at it. I kind of hope they do tomorrow. So that, all that being said, it does allow you to deficit spend, and what that does is it comes off of your, it allows the town to use various strategies, either to take it right off your free cash apportionment, or simply allow to take off the cherry sheet allocation for the beginning of the next year, or simply fund it as a future obligation. So it gives the town that opportunity to look at those alternatives as it may fit the town's needs.
Right.
And you're not going to be alone in this exercise.
No, everyone.
Could be a lot of
Oh,
companies.
sure, yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, we're not unique. I would say that it's universal, how all towns handle it.
Yeah, we might get a little bit of flexibility from the state in terms of how they let us handle it too, but potentially, I think they've done that before.
Biggest issues we really dealt with post-storm, and I've got to say it, because I recognize the challenges everybody has with putting snow in their own yard and putting it somewhere. They got to put it somewhere. But the place not to put it is the street. People who back their vehicles out to the street and brush them off. People who snow blow, who actually can aim it, snow blowing to the street. People shoveling it, a little more sympathy for. Snow plowers, private contractors, I don't care if your driveway's too narrow, you shouldn't have a snow plower. Snow ending up in the street, which is illegal. It's discourteous, it's unsafe, and it's illegal, cannot be tolerated. It meant more than 50% of the calls that we got the day after the storm about there being snow on our street, more than half of those complaints were, in fact, was a result of people doing exactly what I said. We are not going to tolerate it anymore. It's, the police department can come down, I know they got other things on their hands, but they have got to be serious fines levied. It absolutely, positively, in some instances, people put in their driveways, we're adding a full foot of snow back into the street. You go to stretch a bare road, and then you get this nice hump where half a dozen people did it, and then back to bare again. It's not the plows, it's the people. So that can't happen anymore. The other thing I really want to point out, though, is also, this new trash contractor, unlike the last contractor, picks up trash in the snow. So with Wednesday and Thursday still being a cleanup, we were collecting snow, collecting snow and trash. We were collecting trash and recycling as scheduled. So the protocol was going to be, unless you hear an announcement to the contrary, and we will give that announcement, through all the media outlets that we use, the expectation is put your trash out on your day, not on the edge of the road, but in your driveway, so the guys can collect it. If they miss your entire street, it's only because the road was impassable, they couldn't, they will get that the next day. That's a careful proviso that I don't want to offer on a general basis, because the rule is it will get collected, and it did last week. Our tonnage was down by 50%, which means half the people decided to keep it till this week. Actually, half the people decided to call and say, come and get it, and we said, you have to wait till this week. Today and yesterday, in fact, the tonnage was back up where it belongs, so I think the message got out. And that's plenty that I have, unless you have questions.
Just, Joel, when are you starting the road widening?
We started that today.
Yeah.
And we will
And those
continue
can't
that
have
tomorrow.
it.
We started today in yesterday's trash route, so because the trash wasn't out, we will finish tomorrow in what was today's trash route. So again, we just didn't want to be able to be pushing trash and recycle bins into people's yards.
This is almost like a public service announcement. Mary Ann Sullivan called me from the Council on Aging today. I guess a lot of seniors are, they paid a lot of money to get their driveways shoveled out or, plowed out, and with your road widening now, it's going to actually block them in again, and a lot of them can't afford it. They can't afford to. So, just as a shout out to any potential volunteers that maybe, that might have elderly people living next to them.
I think it's a brilliant idea.
Just go
I
next
thought
door.
Your question might go in a different direction and put me in a difficult position. It's impossible for us to hit all those
No,
driveways.
understood, but
Boy Scouts are always looking for community service projects.
Yeah.
Every high school senior has to have 400 hours to graduate, community service. So I think a lot of these, an orchestrated effort like that might be something that even the high school guidance counselors might have a resource for.
yeah, like a lot of the seniors get the Meals on Wheels, and so there's no access to the properties now, because they're going to be blocked in again, so.
Yeah. We're not filling them in
No, I understand.
fully,
like-
but we're certainly going to be, it's not going to be able to drive right into the
But if we can
driveway.
get Boy Scouts, or we can get, younger people in neighborhoods where the elderly
Watch
live,
out for your neighbors.
just to make a pathway up for the seniors, that would be,
We talked about this morning, and they did my street today. So when I get home, Jack and I have been dealing with
They
communication
did mine as
issues
well.
all along. So it's not as bad as but for a senior,
Yeah, it snow's heavy, because
It
it's
is,
all,
it
yeah.
is, and it's really cold, so, anybody, and I'll put this out again, and I know Mary's, we've been fielding hundreds of calls every day, If you can't find us, call the station, we'll do whatever we can to try and find someone. I mean, we've done some unique things in the past few weeks that you just wouldn't believe, so, I will say that publicly, call us if you're really stuck, and I'll actually reach out to you, Mary Ann, tomorrow, because it is tough. The downside of all of this, and I actually wrote a Facebook post today, and a few inches is pretty, but 40 plus is miserable. And to say that if you were to just take a litany of the calls that are coming in the station every day, I mean, people, their minds are so tired, their bodies are sore, and their patience is worn out, and, there's no school, and behind the scenes, there's just so much that's been going on, thought and planning wise in the past few weeks. People just, because you're in positions of leadership, there's a lot. And, you heard me at Martin Luther King talk a lot about those three words, sanctity of life. It's really, when a senior falls and breaks the hip on this type of ice, that's life altering to them. It really is. And, we've really done a lot of work here. And I want to touch on just a couple of things, not to jump, you go back when you want, but.
Surrender.
But, and Jack knows this as well, there's really some people behind the scenes who really did a lot, and I'll talk about my own people last, but people like Bill Ritchie, who runs Consolidated Facilities, unbelievable. I mean, he's just nonstop. We've had issues in all our buildings, leaks, ice dams, just things that you wouldn't even, and he has been, and his crew have been nonstop on top of this. People don't realize how the tough things can happen. No one wants to close school more than Mary Gormley. No one. I mean, she wants those schools open. And last week, unfortunately for Joe, he was the first one to find out schools had to be closed an extra day because of an issue on DCR in Mass Highway, in Mass Dot, 138 and Boyles Parkway. And when I first heard about it, I thought, well, Mary wanted, like, we got to open, and in my mind, I'm like, maybe we can just close the Tucker, but the Parkway is really, just the Parkway alone is so integral to the PS, the high school. There were bus pickups for Glover, Cunningham, Collycott. It was just, and it reverberated. She had to close. And I could see the comments, parents, why she had to do that. But Bill Ritchie's guys, DCR really, and I don't want to throw them, but they kind of dropped the ball. And it was a mechanical issue, and it was beyond anyone's. Jason Scherer went out that night, down the Tucker, worked all night. It's not Town of Milton obligation. It's not even Milton Public Schools obligation. Worked all night trying to open that area himself. These are the kind of like unsung things that people don't even know about. Cindy Page, the Vice President of Milton Hospital, she's working on something for Jack and I right now. I've said this very often. We are so fortunate to have a medical facility in our town. We really are. It's just, they are such an and they've really emerged themselves in the partnership with BI Deaconess, but they provided food for us. When the first day of the blizzard, when the governor issued the shelter in place, this was more than just Thanksgiving or Christmas where you can find someplace. This was everything. I mean, 7-Eleven in Lincoln Square was an oasis in the middle of the entire Pacific Ocean. That was it. That was in Gerard Anamonis on the Dorchester side of mine. Milton Hospital, they made box lunches for everyone. They were a true partner in this. Sergeant Chuck Caputo, who runs the LEPC, they went up, Buddy McDermott, Paul Hopkins, Rob Mallett, who's our IT guy, but the three of them working on auxiliary fire on a four-wheel drive truck. They went up, they pulled out cots, they set up cots.
Cots, pillows, blankets, comfort stations.
It comfort stations, the police station, the hospital, the Public Works, for the library at the high school, all in case people needed. I can't even count. We ran, between us fire and Milton Auxiliary Fire, we ran four-wheel drive vehicles doing medical transports just on the day of the blizzard. And then for the whole 24, all three shifts. We took dozens of staff. One doctor who's known to all of you in this town, who called me personally, said he had 2 ICU patients up here. He couldn't fathom the thought that he was not going to get into that hospital to see them because of their condition, and how grateful he was that a four-wheel drive vehicle would come from this town and pick him up and take him back and forth. So all these little things that went on, and you saw me, these don't really fuss to me because we've been planning and training, preparing for this. In the blizzard of 78, I don't think we even had any four-wheel drive vehicles. Now we have like a litany we have like a fleet that we're not crippled. There was a woman who lives on Essex Street Extension, and she's disabled herself. She called the other night in the middle of the second storm, 16 inches of snow. Her husband was 65. He just couldn't get to the house. Four-wheel drive vehicle picks him up, cruiser, right up to the door, takes him in. And she took the time to call. And so I know there are a lot of complaints, and I know people's patience is tried, but we really have some really great people here. And as I say, it goes from your department heads all the way to and for me, my men and women do a great job, but I really have to single out the communication staff, because I'm telling you, we could spend a week just listening to the phone calls. You could have a show on it itself. It's everything from A to Z you could think of. So we'll get through this. 4th of July will be here, and we'll get through this. But it just, if people just bear with us, yeah, they will. They'll complain. But if they can just bear with us, knock on wood, we haven't had anything serious happen. No one's lost their life here. No one's been harmed. No one's slid underneath a plow or a fire truck. And there was a guy the other night, Nancy Bassani, the animal control officer, just the diligence of our people. She saw a guy slide and fall at Canton and the Parkway, and she made a U-turn in the dark, and she couldn't find him. So she radioed it in, and one of the officers, Buddy Colgan, was checking for a long time, found the guy on Dyer Ave, cold, disoriented. Not that elderly either. He lived on Kayla, didn't know where he was. Just from the, and that's the type of environment we're working in right now, and people have really pulled together and done a great job for you, and I think for all of us we really need. I mean, I know we're all taking the headaches of pushing snow, but you have to do it, because tonight there could be a big fire like there was in Norwood today, and the last thing I would want to see, and I've been very out, because we're really out, we can get a cruiser through, it's a different story to get engine 2 or ladder 1, to get something through on one of these little narrow roads, it's a big issue.
Yeah, Lyman Road, I had been away at a conference all week, and I finished cleaning driveways and hopped in the car at 8 o'clock Monday night to go out, and came home to have Lyman have been widened, so I spent 2 hours bopping around and cleaning driveways again. And even at that, as I was coming to this meeting, you're pulling into the snowbank to let another car go by, and that's a car, you know? The engines are one thing. What I really worry about is that ladder truck. You know, on top of the volume of the truck itself,
Yep.
we're operating it for the most part with one man. I panic about that ladder truck going out in the street, and long beyond the point of the snowstorm. Because as we've talked about in the past, I do put extra personnel on during snowstorms. You can only keep it on there for so long. And especially on that I usually keep an extra person on a day longer there than I do on the engines. You know, because once the streets are cleared and people have done their walkways, the extra guy on the engine is really, you know, if you get stuck, and we've done this in the past, getting in. You know, I can recall one storm where you had, you know, and they were back-to-back, 3 life-threatening medical calls in a row, and driveways weren't done, and, you know, you put your head down, and there's 3 guys shuffling to get in there. You know, with the ladder truck, you know, once those are done, you can safely take that guy off the engines and go back to your regular crew. With that ladder truck and the height of the snowbanks and visibility coming around corners, it's an uncomfortable time of year for that. And, you know, I recognized and listened to a bit of complaining today, you know, that some roads aren't widened, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot of complaining of roads once they are widened, because, you know, like you said, you know, I can't afford to open my driveway again, I just can't do it. It needs to be done for us.
Right.
It really, truly does. This is an uncomfortable time of year. These big snowstorms, the first thing I do is I take a ride down Randolph Ave, Blue Hill Ave, and those are the streets where the height of the snowbanks, you know, bury the fire hydrants by a foot or more. You know, so there's...
That was one question I had.
They're burying stop signs right now.
People digging those out?
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the questions I had, because there were a lot of posts out on Facebook that said, I'd love to dig out the fire hydrant, I don't know where it is. And we don't have those, we don't use the long poles.
We have never had the poles.
The other thing I thought about, you know, if you don't want to do the poles, is we have a GIS map that I can tell you where every manhole is in the entire town. But I can't tell you where fire hydrants are.
Those, well, look, they are GIS mapped.
But they're not on the GIS map you can pull up.
They're not publicized.
The
no.
average person at home doesn't have access to that.
and-
Unless they had a real powerful iPhone and security access to it.
And
Right, yeah,
beyond that,
I can pull up the GIS map, and I can see manhole covers on it, on the one right on, you can Google it and go, but there's no way to get the fire hydrants on that map?
I would say if they're buried, usually on the side streets, they're not.
You can
know,
see it, yeah.
Usually you can pick out the cap, you know, and more than just the nut on the top. Usually you can at least pick out the cap of it. I've got one, and I live in the house that I grew up in, so I've been shoveling that hydrant for 45 years.
You know exactly where it
I
is.
know exactly where it is, and I will say this storm here was the closest I've ever seen it to being completely buried. But they are visible.
That was the point I was going to make is, you know, every person who has a hydrant in front of the house, and I do at home as well, and we take care of it at home, I mean, they know where it is. No map is going to help them locate it any better than their own knowledge of their own yard and where that hydrant is, because they mow around it and they avoid
Yeah,
it.
I could just say, I was getting those comments, so, and-
But, you know, if there was a group of people who wanted to canvass the neighborhoods and do it as an effort, you know, that they're not familiar with the area, that is the challenge I think I'm hearing you say.
yeah.
You know what I think is going to help with that? I live on a main road, Reedsdale Road, and there is a fire hydrant right in front of my house. And luckily, the first blizzard, some of the neighbors who had a snow blower, which I do not have, came over and took care of it. The second storm, it goes to your widening of the roads issue, Joe. There was so much snow between the hydrant and the street that it was very, very difficult to get to it. I asked the plow operator, private plow, just someone who was plowing out my driveway, to do it, and they never got to it. So that's going to have to be done this weekend, so I'll make an effort this weekend. But if you're widening the streets, that will at least help people get to the hydrants. For the people who know where they are, if they're in front of their house or you've lived in a place for a long time and you know where they are, I think it was difficult, especially in the main roads.
On the main roads it is,
Some of them and even
and-
to dig them out, but those side streets, I think,
They generally are.
It was less of an
Yeah,
issue.
they're- And I will say, historically, some neighborhoods are very, very good. And you can, we drive through them to make sure
You can tell
anyways.
them, yeah, you
But
see them.
every hydrant is shoveled for you. You just go through and, go find another neighborhood. And then there's other neighborhoods where, it's not a thought in their head. And, if you look at this past week, Walpole, they had a fire, turn around in the same, and it's, in the fire service, it's the dreaded rekindle. You don't want to have a fire and then have a fire in the same house because you missed something. That's not what they think happened here. There was a foreclosure involved. So they checked and they checked. They did it right. But even after the fire, all the hydrants in the neighborhood weren't shoveled out. We actually, and again, we actually kind of talked about this in the meeting last week about the utilization of Facebook and all that, and where I'm really the only day staff, we can't maintain anything over there. But the local does. They put out something, and they're putting out pictures of the kids who shovel the hydrants, and
Right, so that's-
That was a good idea.
we did throw up a couple of, this is what we're dealing with, and I was the one who took the pictures. I drove around, and you go Adam Street and Brook Road, and you look how far in off the road those are, and then how high the snowbanks are.
A lot of work.
3 guys, it can still be 20 minutes to get in and get that cleared. If you have a snowbank, a hydrant in front of or within, especially like you say, if you've got elderly neighbors and it's in front of their house, it's in your best interest. I believe it was in Boston, there was a fatality due to a hydrant, access problems. So it's one of those things, you don't need us until you need us. But if you need us and we needed you to help us and it's not there, we can run into a lot of trouble.
But I think the snow is just packed so thick that if you're like me and you just have a plastic shovel,
You can't
you
do it.
can't
No,
get,
you can't
and you've
do
got
it.
a few feet
And
of
we
snow
understand.
between the road and the hydrant, so.
Beyond that, on
Over
our end, we
time.
are out every day. We're out doing it.
But I think the road widening is going to help, too.
Yeah, but we touched on it earlier, the fact that there haven't been markers, it's time to consider them, We're getting enough big storms every handful of years that they are getting completely buried, and it's time to consider doing it.
The markers work very well in a rural area where there's not a lot of pedestrian traffic. When there is a lot of pedestrian traffic, particularly near, and I don't mean anything by this, but particularly near school populations where the kids are mischievous.
Yeah,
They
they
just
get
get ripped right off.
drunk, yeah,
They're a
yeah.
terrible waste of money.
Yeah.
$20 a piece, and, your next thing you know, $1,000 missing markers by the second week of school.
The only other comment I really had is our communications, I think, is getting infinitely better between the police Twitter, Facebook, DPW's Facebook, the fire department's Facebook, town's got a Facebook. Still a lot of people that don't realize, a town meeting member did not realize that a very vocal town meeting member, I should say, did not realize the town did not have a Facebook account, had a Facebook.
I had a Facebook.
But we are getting better. Still, with all that, I think when you get out, you still see a lot of people that just still don't know what's going on and have questions, and they don't, for whatever reason, they're either not or don't think to check the Facebook. They're not friends on the Facebook accounts. My suggestion is, There is a Facebook page out there called Milton Neighbors and Milton Neighbors.
It's a private, it's a closed site, it's not an
Yeah,
open
closed
site.
Right, but you can be invited on it.
Yeah, I actually tried to join it in order to become a member so I could get information disseminated through them, and actually my membership hasn't been accepted, and it's been 2 months.
But, you know, Tom, what I think, where the police and the firefighters,
I don't
if
think
it's
we'd
not the
go
fire
there.
department, it's the
I don't think our kids
firefighters,
would go there.
and the Department of Public Works, they all have Facebook pages. One
Right,
thing
the only
that
thing is, there's
ta-
3,000 Milton
Okay,
residents
but let me
on that
finish.
Facebook account.
The town administrator and we talked about this on the local emergency planning call, because I know you put out several things.
I did.
Dennis did too, that were helpful on different Facebook pages. The official ones that we have, we need to get the word out that they're there. Because if anyone's a member of Milton Neighbors, they should be liking the police, the fire, the DPW, so that they can get the notices. Because there's quite a lot of information on those, the police and the DPW and the firefighters.
There absolutely is, there absolutely is.
So we need to have kind of the town speaking with a single voice, and so I think the town administrator's thought is to have, she can speak for herself, but the idea is to have the IT department really look at this and try to take the lead on putting out official notices. But I think the police and the DPW and the fire do a really good job at
They
it.
did an excellent job in terms
Yeah.
of getting it, it's just that it's just still not hitting.
I made reference multiple times to the various media outlets, so we don't rely strictly on Facebook. We use the town's website,
Yep.
the news item. So if you're a subscriber of news, you get a notice of any news item that gets
Notice,
posted.
yes.
We use the school department, we love the school department as far as getting word out, because
Your email blast?
they have like 8,000 subscribers to their email blast. So that goes out on a very regular basis. We use that. We use the 2 blogs that are in town. We use the 2 newspapers. We use cable TV. So we're trying to, and I've said this before, we hit all of those outlets, but you are never going to hit 100% of your
No,
population.
it's never gonna
We do a darn good job hitting as many as we can through all those outlets, but you're never going to hit everybody. And our goal is to try to hit everybody.
Yep.
And some of the elderly just aren't really online. I mean, a
No,
lot of them
those
are,
are
but
not.
there's still a good number who aren't.
No, I did out in that Milton Neighbors site, put out the Milton Police Twitter account so that people would at least know that out there and
So-
follow that.
So, we've worked really hard on this. This is probably one of the things that has been a big success for us. As I think I said, I think last week, the week of the protest, we had 50,000 reads. Last week, we had close to 50,000 reads. Just on the 2 days of the storms, I think we had like 15,000 reads. But to Milton Neighbors, which I'd rather go on another, we'll talk about that probably. We're not going to go there as far as joining, from a police agency. We're a police agency first. But I would say, just on our no parking ban, I counted, they did like 26 shares just on their site, just yesterday in one day. Comments, so they're definitely in tune. I don't think there's anybody, and I'll start with Frank still behind me. I don't think there's any citizen or media outlet that we deal with, and we deal with the press every day, that is not going to our Facebook page daily to see things that we're posting. Like today was a major power outage. Seconds, we put, I mean, in the past, and I thank Tom Pill of the Times for doing, in the past, either, well, first it was Deputy Chief Paris or John or myself, would have to go back and write a press release, or write out, and now it's like we were sending press releases from the protest, from the bridge.
Right.
From the bridges, boom, just sending
That's
them right away.
amazing.
Quincy PD sent their personnel, they were doing the same thing for their personnel, so, but I understand where you're going with Milton Neighbors, but our mission is different than theirs. Our mission is public safety in the town, and that's kind of how we use it. And one of the things, and I give Wanda Craig the credit for this, because she was the one who said it, and I give Brian Kelly from, which is My Town, what is his TV show, Talk of the Town? He was the one who said to me, if you go this route, because I knew nothing about, I don't have a personal Facebook account. You have to treat it like a living, breathing thing. If you don't use it every day, people aren't going to follow it.
Right.
And so we try to put some, whether it's just an informational thing, a thank you, a point of interest, so that every day there's something, just like Frank did, so there's something to
Right,
read.
if it gets stale, yeah.
Right. I mean, Frank is as close to, and I'm not here to, he's as close to real-time news in this town as there is. He really is. I mean, Pat's was for a little while, but they're 5 days out. And Pat's, is a weekly publication. So we're very cognizant of, Milton Neighbors, the different groups. I think there's 2 other ones out there as well. They're all like reading. And as I say, the fact that we got 50,000 reads, Facebook emailed me today, the Milton Police Facebook page is in the 95th percentile of Facebook in the world. as far as its reads and its use. That's where they read it.
So I think we
And
should-
they're constantly sending us stuff.
So I think we should encourage residents who are on Facebook, who aren't following
To
the
like
police, the DPW, and the
Like
fire sites, to go ahead, follow them, like them, and you'll get the information.
'Cause that's all you have to do is like it. You're right. Once you like it, you get it. You
Right.
don't have to, and the other thing is Milton Neighbors is a lot, as you saw, we don't want to go there. You know, in the beginning, we never refer, if you posted, we didn't, now we will, like today, you could tell, like, there were, the school, a couple, I think two of the schools were out, Pierce and maybe, I know Pierce was definitely out. I'm not sure if the high school was out. So you see parents putting, what time, so they responded back, NSTAR said 31 minutes. It's finally back on. So in that aspect, but we're not gonna banter back and forth.
No, I wouldn't expect you to, yeah.
Yep. Actually, on that communication end, if I could take a couple minutes just to announce, because it just happened at 4 o'clock this afternoon, we have a considerable water main break that's occurring right now on Church Street between Emerson and Collimore. There are 7 to 10 houses with no water whatsoever. However, the immediate neighborhood, Wood Street, Antwerp, Emerson, Collimore, Alvin, they're likely to see lower water pressure, and then when the water restores, perhaps some rusty water. So when they get up in the morning, if the folks could run their cold water, not their hot water, run their cold water first just to clear that rust away. It's safe to drink after that. The reason why you don't run the hot water, you don't want to draw that rust into your hot water tank. That could cause some damage. So we apologize. I mean, it's unforeseen. I mean, nobody certainly wants to be, my 7 guys out there working in 15-degree weather, soaking wet up to their knees. But that's what's happening right now.
Well, thank you for that update. Joe, I have a question about the sidewalks. I know you've got a sidewalk plow that's covering as many sidewalks as we can. There was an inquiry about the Campbell School area, and maybe you could just speak
We
to that
took care
because
of
it's a
that
state
already.
road. You did take care of
I
that?
took care of that already today.
Okay. Could you maybe, just for the viewers who are watching, because there's a difference between the town roads and the state roads, and who's responsible for what?
Sure, that's very confusing. But simply put, Blue Hill Parkway in its entirety is DCR, as well as Unquity Road along the Yulin Rink all the way up through their park, portions of Hillside, in the Ponce Valley Parkway. Those are all in Truman Highway. In a piece of Brush Hill Road which connects between Mattapan Square and Truman Highway. That's all DCR jurisdiction. Mass DOT picks up Route 138, which is Blue Hill Avenue full length, so from Mattapan Square all the way out to the Canton line. Of course, it continues into Canton from there, but that's all state jurisdiction. And then Route 28, only on Randolph Ave, beginning at Tedeschi's all the way down to the Randolph line, is state jurisdiction, state DOT. And then the last DOT piece are the ramps all around the expressway and Granite Avenue, beginning at Wood Street, if you will, Bassett Street, all the way north to the Boston line, is all state jurisdiction. The state DOT does not do sidewalks. They're a highway group. They don't do sidewalks, though all of those streets have sidewalks on both sides of them. DCR, on the other hand, does do sidewalks, and they do the sidewalks on Truman Highway, Blue Hill Parkway, and Brush Hill Road. And the Ponce Valley doesn't have sidewalks.
No, doesn't have any.
Just that area down by Paul's Bridge at Brush Hill Road. They do that area. So that's pretty much the jurisdictional coverage. So every other street in town is our street. The sidewalks that we do, this was a plan laid out years ago. It starts at each of the schools and radiates out along the main drags. As far as the school openings, that's going to be the goal for the next morning. And then as the days go on, we try to widen into those areas where we can actually put the plow. Many sidewalks in this town are just way too narrow. There's street furniture, whether it's light poles, those ornamental lights, or other things that are just so close that you just can't get a plow through. So that limits what it is we could do, even if we wanted to. Truth be told, we've got about 280 miles of sidewalk in town. It's almost triple the roadway lengths that we have, which counts for some of the paths and some of the cross-country paths. And we do just a fraction of that.
Okay, well, so you took care of the Campbell School area, even though it's not
That was done this afternoon. My understanding, there was a follow-up complaint after my staff went home at 3:30. They're requesting that the other side of Blue Hill Avenue be done, which we have never done. even when we've tried to help out, but the request is to go over there too. Again, state roadway, what we do to help. And we've done what we typically do, which is from Tucker School, which is Oak Street, all the way up to Blue Hill Terrace. We did that whole side, on the Temple side,
Okay.
which is where the campus school is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Did you get a complaint on this? Because I saw something yesterday. Are there people walking to the Campbell School? Because I saw this somewhere yesterday, this came to my attention. Because I actually went there this morning.
I got a message about it, so I didn't speak to the person.
All right, so that's what I've never seen it, but the way it came to me was, it wasn't more it was the crosswalk,
Crosswalk, it was mentioned in the
people
message.
walking to the Campbell School, but I don't know where they're walking from,
Yeah. Good point, yeah.
I just don't know where they're coming from, or how it's,
Most of the parents dropping off in cars.
yeah, most
Maybe it's
preschools are
someone
all
who lives
drop-off, you
nearby.
don't really see, like you start, so you don't usually see people walking, but if I had an idea where this was or what time it was,
I want to be clear that we did the sidewalks.
Right.
In the crosswalks, right at the intersection itself. If they're asking to remove snowbanks so they could drop kids off more safely, we did not remove snowbanks. I mean,
Yeah, no, the call I got
we
was
don't do it
about
in public
sidewalks.
schools.
and I don't think you could correct me, I don't think MassDOT has ever removed like the way they have. DCR, I expect, looking at it today, on both the lower end of Brush Hill and the Parkway at any night, they're gonna show up with a litany of machines and just
Take it all away.
take it all away, or push it way back. And any cars that are there, they're just gonna tow them. That's the risk you park when you park on a DCR roadway.
I even contemplated, I mean, just as a way of trying to think out of the box, I contemplated, tapping into the sheriff's department of MCI to see if we could get some work crews, minimum security from MCI or some of the, jailed inmates who could be out on work release. I mean, certainly they're in demand everywhere. My experience in Shirley, where I had an MCI crew assigned to me, I had 7 prisoners every single day assigned as my normal workforce. They don't like the cold, they don't like the shovel. Inevitably, you're going to buy them their lunch, you're going to buy them their dinner, and they're going to break all the shovels because they don't like the shovel. And that's the end of it, so it's not worth the effort.
All right, Joe, well, on that note, is there anything else, any
the only
questions or comments?
The only other thing I
So
want
with
to
the rotary
say,
shovel-
No, I know. I think too that one point that I've noticed is that we are a very diverse community in many ways, and one of them is age, and this is where the age part comes out. And we've seen loads of cases where, people have looked in and seen this. People have taken their snowblowers and done, complete sidewalks. I mean, my street in Region, we do it almost all the way to the hospital and back on one side. Collectively, a group of us with snowblowers. There's really been some, for all the negative and all the trying of patience and all the complaints, some people in this community have really done some wonderful things, and I think we should all be appreciative of that.
Yeah, and I need to
it makes it a lot
apologize, because I
easier.
didn't acknowledge that. Absolutely, I
Very
saw that
appreciative.
throughout the entire summer, an awful lot of neighborly action. And again, I played up all the negatives, but you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
they-
There's a
they
lot of good
definitely-
stuff that does happen.
People realize this is tough. I mean, no one wants to shovel their driveway 5 times. You just don't. But it's.
Especially
this is-
6-foot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is some serious snow here, and.
And we've
right
had people
now,
out of the
we're
blue
good.
to deliver coffee and donuts down to the yard, just for the guys.
There was a comparison earlier to the blizzard of '78, and after thinking about it, and you think about back to then, the roads were closed for
Right.
a week.
That's right.
So
right.
these guys are doing a pretty good job here.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the hospital as well, because Cindy Page, I
Huge
agree,
partner.
she's just a great resource and a big help to the town, as well as her day job at the hospital, but I think she's a critical part of the local emergency planning committee, and so thank you to the hospital also
Very
for the lunches and everything else that they
They were
donated.
great. They were excellent. They were very, I mean, there wasn't like, you could get to, I got to 7-Eleven, but there was no bread to buy, even if you wanted to make peanut, it just wasn't.
Yeah.
They sold out of hot dogs like that, and I'm saying to myself,
Yeah, no, I
I wish I had a grill.
I swung in there myself, our guys are a little different because they're working 24-hour shifts, so they generally do plan, but, there was a lot of overtime those periods of days too, so after I left the 7-Eleven, I said, let me see if anybody else was open, because these guys might need lunch. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Quincy PD got them to open the original Dunkin' Donuts on Southern Artery, and I think I went, it was like 3:30 in the afternoon I went there. But the line was so long, Normally you'll call and get a list and people say, I'm like, I'm just getting a box of Joe. I wouldn't dare ask the woman to do anything special. I just took the box of Joe, paid for it, walked out the door and brought it to the police station, like, hey, beggars can't be choosers in this, but we really do have, you're only as good as your people. It's, I've said this very often, we're only as good as the people. The three of us aren't out answering calls, we're not, he's got people like Ben and Kim, I can't say enough about them. I mean, I looked at poor Kim Casey, I couldn't envision driving a plow for 40-something hours. I mean, your mind just, everything starts to blur together. But, they did some great, I was looking at my cops, and we have great uniforms now and some like good stuff and Gore-Tex and much better than what they wear in a blizzard of 78. But it's miserable when you're out there. That wind was blowing and whipping and just. It's
cold.
Very
your wife
cold,
is
very
icing
cold.
up.
Everything, equipment malfunctions, just, but, we really do. We're very fortunate. We did very well here. And as the leaders of this community, you should take credit of it because it starts from the top and it goes all the way to people who you hire. And I always say this to you when you come in here. It's who you recruit and hire and who you put in these positions that get it done for you. And anyone who wants to criticize it, they can come and spend a day the next storm with any one of the three of us, and we'll gladly show it to them in Technicolor.
Well, the one little story I wanted to relay, and so I came home Tuesday night, and my driveway, I got almost a 300-foot driveway. It's long.
Pickup truck. Are you going to pickup truck that?
I do have a pickup truck, so I could get that out, but my wife couldn't get her car out. I couldn't get my car out. So I called Joe Tuesday night after I was hoping it might have been plowed. It wasn't plowed. So I called Joe and I said, Joe, are there any off-duty DPW workers that might want to make a little bit of money and have a plow? And Joe said, God, they've been working so hard. I'm probably going to call them and nobody's going to answer the phone, but I'll give it a try. So he did, and it was the first guy he tried, I guess. The kid's name was Aldo, is it?
Aldo Binda.
Yeah, he's fairly new with DPW.
I was very, very cautious, and I don't mind saying this, because you didn't ask for favors, and I didn't offer any favors. But when I called Aldo, I just said, a friend of mine is in a bit of a pickle. His contractor didn't plow him out and he needs help. Will you give him a call? He doesn't even know who you are.
Right.
So,
He called me within 15 minutes. He was there 15 minutes after that, and
So
I got plowed out.
there was no outside influence, he just did it because he
So
was...
thank you to him, and actually it was
Bobby O'Donnell's-
Bob O'Connell's
Bobby O'Connell's son, yeah.
Yeah.
Young Bobby, yeah.
Yeah, who showed up.
He's a contractor. They all grow up so fast. He's a contractor plowing for us this year as well.
Bobby O'Connell from Curry?
Yes,
his son.
His son, yeah. So thank you to both of them, man. Big help.
All right, well, thank you, and please convey our thanks to all of your
Thank you.
I will pass it
police,
along.
fire, and public works staff, and Bill Ritchie's group, and everyone who was involved in this, all the different departments, so.
Yeah, job well
It
done.
was,
And I would
job
like
well
to-
done is right.
I would like to thank the police chief and DPW director and the fire chief. They kept me involved throughout the whole storm, kept me updated, helped me to make the decision whether or not to open or close town hall, and I really do appreciate their assistance.
It's a team.
I know that the governor and the lieutenant governor, this was their first big, and they were very impressed with what they saw operationally statewide, from both the state level all the way down the cities and towns. They were very pleased with what they saw.
You only see the press conferences at the bunker, but anybody who's been at the bunker during an emergency, it's amazing, the network of the way the communications are working, and everybody has an expertise. All the information travels up to a point, and all the answers come back down to all the sub-agencies. It's a really amazing tool. I think the governor gets a better, you can tour it all the time if you want and not understand it. I think the governor saw it firsthand pretty early on in his administration.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all very much.
I have one other item at 10, item 10, Madam Chairman. Do you need me to discuss any questions on that, or? I'll stick around if you wish me to.
Transfer?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
It's a transfer, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, Joe. And we'd move it up, but we've got our planning director here, and he has to get down to the warrant committee by 9 o'clock, so we have under an hour. Yeah, we'll get to that later on in the agenda.
Oh, you're all set, you don't need
Yes, no, we're all set. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Okay, we are on to the, want to cover the fire chief first? Or- Okay. Okay, so.
One last try, Bill, if you've got to get out of here, I don't mind waiting.
No, Bill Ritchie's still.
Okay, so let's go on, I think the police chief will be back later on the traffic rules. So we'll go on to number 7. We'll go on to the fire. We have two things, Jack, with you, the contract and the update from your department. You want to do the update first?
Yeah, actually, update-wise, they're, to me, relatively routine quarter. So the one out of the ordinary thing would probably be the protest down the highway.
Yeah.
And there again, I compliment those guys there that, sometimes it's action and sometimes it's thought. And this time here, it was, good, quick thought, and, these guys recognize that, it was more a technical rescue type of thing than an ordinary staffed engine, and, the call went out to bring the Boston Rescue in, with the extra training and the extra tools. So, I got to commend them on that, because, you try to do something on an incident like that, and you can, I won't say these guys were well-intentioned, because I don't believe they were, but a well-intentioned act on our part could seriously hurt somebody else. So that's the one that was, really kind of out of the routine for us.
And Chief, on that note, I had someone ask a question. When we had firefighters, and I think there was a fire truck down on the expressway, did we have mutual aid from Boston covering the station here? How did that work?
No, we only had one truck down on the highway. What you had was Boston apparatus down on the highway. You had, we actually called for the rescue truck, to my knowledge. I didn't place the call. But as far as I know, they specifically asked for the rescue, which is an individual unit. They've also over there got a number, and I'm not sure how many exactly it is, but on-duty technical rescue engine companies. And they sent a couple of them over as well. So there was a number of Boston people down on the highway. Matter of fact, we've got two people on the Norfolk County Tech Rescue team, and I got text from them saying basically, "What about us?" And I said, "I'm sorry, but when you have, on-duty staffed companies, in that situation, sorry you didn't get the call."
Okay, thank you.
The other thing I jump back to is the snowstorms. And, this is something we saw coming, or I saw coming, quite frankly, July 1st, day one of the fiscal year. We had a number of injuries that were carrying over from the last fiscal year that were, just because you're in the spring and that low period of vacation time didn't affect us. But we knew we were going to suffer this year, and we are.